really what I'm interested in hearing about, and I believe my audience is interested in hearing about, is the mistakes you made starting with Starcom, right? What you learned and said, okay, this really didn't work for me, and let me fix that in the next one. And then, of course, the next one you're going to make other mistakes. Walk me through that process because that's what I'm really interested in hearing about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So in Starcom, so obviously, my original my major in college was in the School of Technology, but the specificity was around more construction management. And when I lived in Atlanta, we had tried to spool up a software company, but it never really went. We never
Right.
actually really started because of various reasons. But
Hmm.
um, so I think the biggest thing is sit on one toilet is a saying that I heard once.
Say that
It,
again.
you can only sit on one toilet.
You only sit on one toilet, right?
And so like when you're starting a
As in, there's an
business,
ass for every seat.
right? And so
Right.
like, and the concept is like when you start a company to solve a problem, well, then you discover there's 10 problems.
Mm,
Well, gosh, I can solve all those. And it seems like you can, but you can't.
yeah.
Solve the first one,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Get product market fit with it. Solve the first one, get traction, right? And then you can layer in the second thing, and then the third thing, and the fourth thing.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing is get people, and I've always had this thought process, but get people who are smarter than you. So I'll give you an example with Starcom. We fired up the first three broadband systems before we actually had the first couple of experts, engineers out of Comcast and Time Warner that we hired from before we had them fully on board. So we're kind of meeting at night,
Hmm.
having coffee or whatever. And the first three cable systems, I guess it really were broadband systems. I screwed them up. I mispriced them, and so out of the gate, I had a miss of almost $200,000.
Yikes.
So, and we had spent 18 months preparing for the launch, right?
Hmm.
Um, Another thing that happened with that is a friend introduced me to a potential investor, and I didn't do enough diligence on who I was going to be meeting with. And I discovered about 5 minutes into the meeting, oh my gosh, this guy's actually an investor in one of my biggest competitors.
Yeah.
So I politely pulled my materials back across the table and I said, "It's great to meet you." And the guy was literally yelling at me as I was walking out the door, like, you don't know anything about this business, you suck," and right. And that happened literally the first day that we started the company was when that meeting happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that night, fetal position, what have I done? I don't know anything about this industry, et cetera. I knew the people to go get contracts with, right? I
Right.
knew the real estate people. And so I could go get deals, right? Um, Next morning I woke up and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go take all their customers. And so that's what I did. It took 2 years. And I took every single one of them
Awesome.
by providing better service.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And our big pitch in Starcom was we can turn on and turn off your cable remotely. And so multifamily people loved it because if the rent check didn't show up, they would just say, hey, apartment 212 didn't pay. Click, rent check would show up in 3 hours.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep. And then we got into, we struck a deal with Ameritech, and I think it was UUnit was involved. But I think we
Hmm.
were one of the first companies to tariff dark fiber and like offer 1.5 meg symmetrical internet speeds
Hmm.
um, back in 2000 timeframe, which was really
Hmm.
sexy back then, which is a joke today. But
Yeah.
anyway, so those are a couple things with Starcom. We sold that, and my partner and I didn't know what we were going to do next, and we received a phone call from one of our old customers, and he said, "Hey, I've got these utility problems. I need you to come solve." And we were like, "We just got out of broadband. We couldn't possibly be bothered by utilities."
Hmm.
Long story short, much better business model than broadband because people would actually pay for the utility systems up front, and then we had a recurring revenue stream with the billing software we built. Um, So the lesson learned there um, is relationships and do what you say you're going to do. Don't overextend yourself. And if you do what you say you're going to do, people will depend on you, rely on you, and believe you and trust you, and they'll think you can do anything.
Hmm.
So we literally started via Star Energy um, because one of our old customers that we did broadband with said he had utility problems and wanted us to help him fix them.
Yep.
And that's how
You
we
know,
launched it.
yeah, it's really interesting because, when you say that, what I'm hearing is, I refer to that as having integrity.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
integrity for me is your word.
That's right.
So
There's
if you
more.
say something, do what you say, and
That's
people
right.
can always count on you.
There's more authenticity sometimes in saying no, right? No is not necessarily a
Yeah,
bad thing.
I say no.
Yeah, right. That's okay.
It's absolutely okay. But I think, I heard somebody recently, I was in an executive roundtable, and one of the other people who were there happened to mention that, he wants to be in a place where he can, turn away business. And I thought, I've been turning away business for years
Yeah,
because, why does anybody need that agita?
that's exactly right. So
It's just not worth it. For me, it's not worth the money, really.
yeah,
I've taken on projects in the past before I realized this was gonna happen, right? And then I'm like, "I'll never work with that person again. Never.
that's right.
Never."
Sometimes people and companies
Yep.
like to take advantage of other people, right? And
Mhm.
if they know you're young, especially,
Yep.
they're like, well, and they know that their logo is really critical or
Right.
something to your business. They want to take
Mhm.
advantage of you. Well, that's not good for your business.
Yep. So what kind of mistakes did you make at via Star? Or had you learned everything by then?
No, I still make
4
mistakes
years after
today.
your first startup.
I think if you're not making a few mistakes here and there, you're not trying hard enough, right?
I agree. No, I'm teasing. Yeah.
I learn every single day. I
Yeah.
still make mistakes.
Mhm.
So let's see. At Viastar, we we thought that we could by ourselves spec out all of the information required and needed. What they used to call it back in the day, when you would produce a document to build a piece of software. So we wanted to build a piece of billing software,
Mhm.
and we thought that we
Application
could.
development?
Yeah,
Is
there's
that what
like
you're
this
talking
huge
about?
document, right?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can't possibly think of all the use cases and all the needs,
Correct.
right? And so basically, we thought that project was going to cost us X dollars, and it ended up
Mm.
costing us like four times that, and it still
Got it.
wasn't really where we wanted it by the time we
Mhm.
sold.
Mhm.
Um, Now, software development is much different today, and we didn't
Mhm.
have the tools and the processes back then, as an industry with how you would develop today.
Mhm.
So what I think is important today, and the mistake we made back then, is we didn't have that technical expertise in house, none of it.
Mhm.
And it's just not. All companies aren't created equal, right? So it depends what you're building, et cetera. But
Mhm.
maybe don't take this in the absolute in every situation,
Mm.
but have technical expertise on your team
Mhm.
at least at some level, um, to avoid catastrophes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
I used to have a franchise business, and the franchisor wanted to go out and build. I can't remember what the heck it was. Let's just pretend it was a CRM. It was something else. I think you were building.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to build your own custom. Uh, I think it was their custom
Very
POS.
expensive.
Custom POS. Like
Yeah.
that is going to be very expensive,
Yeah.
and it's never going to work. And
Mhm.
you're going to throw it in the trash can in 4 years. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. So
Mhm.
so like so staying in the swim lane, I guess is the key lesson learned in Viastar,
Mhm.
right? Uh,
Mhm.
we had our skill sets and our expertise, and
Mhm.
we tried to get outside of that, um, and it didn't work.
Tell me a little bit about Navidar.
Yep, Navidar. So our whole thesis was in the middle quarter of the country, there are a lot of awesome tech companies that don't get the attention of the tech bankers. All the tech bankers sit in New York and San Francisco.
Yeah,
Period.
right.
Full stop. And the folks out here in the middle quarter are more generalists, and that's not a
Mhm.
bad thing. So if investment bankers are listening to this in the middle quarter, that's I'm not saying it's not a bad thing at all. But there's a different way that you position and sell a SaaS company with forward-looking, multiples,
Mhm.
forward-looking revenue, ARR, having a strong
Mhm.
foundation, all the fundamentals, et cetera. And so that's what we did. It was awesome. We did mostly domestic work, a little bit of cross border,
Mhm.
um, did a little bit of buy side, mostly sell side,
Mhm.
and did a couple capital raises as well. And it was a blast.
Mhm.
I loved it, but I was used to being the person on the other side of the table, and that's why I ended up cashing out.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, Christopher, um, can you look at all your past um, organizations and point to one or two or three things that, as a co-founder and leader, some of your biggest lessons?
Yep. So listening, If you're ever in a room that you're the smartest person in the room, you are in trouble. So I always try to find people who are smarter than me,
Right. As you said. Yeah. Hmm.
and so I love that. So I think um, it's never as bad as you think it is. There's always tomorrow,
Hmm. That's
um,
great.
and and that kind of leads into like perseverance, like true perseverance,
Hmm.
right? You know, wealth isn't built in a day. Right? So we all
Hmm.
see these articles, like well, who was it? Was it Instagram? You know, they sold over a weekend conversation on a napkin. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember,
Right.
it's never true.
Yeah.
It's
Of course.
never true.
Yeah.
And I think there were like 30 people roughly that were involved in Instagram in the early days. For the life of me, I can't remember what Instagram did in their initial onset.
Mm.
Instagram was not Instagram when they started,
Right.
right? They stumbled into, what they became, but they almost went under, right? Amazon, we almost didn't have Amazon.
Right.
If they hadn't raised their funding close enough, if they had raised their funding farther away from the dot bomb,
Hmm.
we never would have had Amazon.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Google, right? They almost couldn't raise their first $100,000. Everybody's like, we already have these things called search engines, and why do we need
Right.
another one? We have Alta
Right.
Vista. What else do we
Right.
need, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So, um, the other thing, back to the listening piece, um, challenge your opinions and your thoughts. Talk to lots of people,
Hmm.
and 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 then and this is kind of juxtaposed what I just said, but then don't be afraid to not listen to the naysayers. I still have, I'm not the most successful person in the world, but I've had a little bit of success, right?
Hmm.
Nine companies, different verticals, solving some interesting problems, had some great
Hmm.
exits to awesome companies. Um, People still tell me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about sometimes, right? So, and maybe on that subject matter I didn't.
Hmm.
But if you don't push the envelope, right? Like Elon
Right.
Musk, what's he doing? He's always pushing the envelope. Even he makes mistakes, right? But if you don't push the envelope, then you can't solve something interesting and novel in a different way.
Carol Schultz here. Thanks for watching this excerpt from Authentically Successful. The conversation doesn't end there. So if you want to hear this episode in full and all my conversations with many other successful founders and CEOs, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast.